woke up feeling great. The birds are in the trees. They're singing me a melody. La 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 la, fuck the police. My head is on straight. My heart is in peace. My soul is incredibly ready to change history. It's a good day to fight the system. To fight the system. It's a good day. It's a good day. We're never gonna stop. We're gonna make it count. When one of us is tired out, the other one will hold it down. We're gonna spread the love. We're gonna spread it around. We're all over the city now, and way down in the underground. Come on. System, to fight the system.
Okay. Welcome to episode podcast 2. Hope y'all like the song of the day. It's called It's a Good Day to Fight the System by Shun Goodzo. I think that's how you pronounce it. So today's episode, oh wait, we have to do our Black Child Joy of the Day. Yes. All right, what are y'all's Black Child Joy of the Day?
Okay, Demi, you want to start?
Yeah, I can start. So I guess something that is appeasing my inner child that has brought me joy is the realization that opportunities are abundant, and that not always being the most, I guess, busy bee under capitalism isn't a bad thing. And so like those two things can exist simultaneously. Like it's like I can still desire success and like continue working, but I can also like breathe and relax and appease my inner child of just being calm and still and easy. So yeah, I don't know if that meets the parameters that we set, but it's kind of hard to think back to specifically to childhood sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's sweet though, because it seems like we usually associate with like being busy with like or having a career, I guess, with like not being totally happy. So it's good that you're having enjoyment in that moment. My Black child joy right now is over this weekend. I was with my family, like my family friends that I grew up with. So just thinking back to the childhood that we shared when we were younger just brought me so much joy in itself. And I literally was I was literally like it like I had no stress the entire weekend. I didn't think about any of the assignments that I had to do or any of the like the deadlines that were approaching me. It just was freedom and pure joy.
Thank y'all for sharing your joy. I always like I'll remember things and I'll be like, I gotta write this down so I can share it the next time. But okay, so today's episode is on joy as a right. And we're gonna go through like how Black youth are met with the process of adultification and criminalization at extremely early ages. The episode is kind of going to be split into 2 parts. The first focusing on like the more obvious ideas of adultification and criminalization, which is like the dynamic between Black boys and cops. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about how young Black girls are kind of left out of this conversation for the most part. So starting off with the facts. Evidence shows that Black boys are 18 times more likely to be tried as an adult than white boys are for the same crime. Now, when I hear this, and I want y'all's opinions on this, I think about what's his name? I can't remember his name. He's so relevant. Kyle Rittenhouse. And I think about how had a Black boy did that, it would not have mattered. No circumstance, no protection or self-defense. Had a black boy cross state lines with guns at 17, tried as an adult and getting life sentence immediately. Now I don't know if y'all feel the same way, but please give your input.
Oh, I certainly feel the same way. Honestly, reading like reading stories about people like that, I'm not even gonna bother saying his name because like doesn't deserve it. Um, it's just astounding to me. But I also think that it feeds back into kind of like what we were talking about the other day in class. It's like as part of our generation, you are like entirely like just washed over with all of these waves of information constantly, and you become desensitized to it in order to survive, and then you only allow yourself those small moments of pain. So it's just I don't I can't imagine having the comfort, the gall, the audacity to do what this kid did, to do what this man did, and move like that. It's just the absolute clownery of our legal system. There's no rhyme or reason to it. I mean, the only reason is it's racism, but still, yeah.
Yeah, it is racism, and I think he was only able to even like phantom the idea of getting away with it just because he knows that he's above the law. He's a white man born wherever he was in the United States. If you're born in the United States and you're a white man, you're already gonna win in so many cases against you. So a black boy, first of all, even if they had the thought of doing it, the first thing they will realize is they are black and they do not have the same privilege to even get away with that. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that guy and and the fact that he really got away with it. He got away with murder or whatever he did, which is pretty much murder, I believe.
Yeah, Maty, and I'm so glad you brought up like the first thing he thinks of is like I'm black. Like I feel like we do it all the time in small like interactions. Be like, no, I'm not gonna do that. Like I'm black, right? Like it's just like, no, I'm actually not gonna just walk into the store and like this. Someone was telling me a story about how like their coworker started eating the chips while they were in the store and then just like walked out. And he was like, I would never do that because they would arrest me over a bag of chips because I'm black. And I'm like, you're absolutely right. And this all ties into how like statistically black children are seen as much older than white children. So like if a 10-year-old black boy and a 10-year-old white boy committed the same crime, like the world views that 10-year-old black boy as like, oh, you might as well charge him like he's 17 because that's just like perception wise. And I think that's kind of how we get into like stripping the rights away of black children because namely their right to be protected. Because when we start seeing children as adults, like when we look at children, we see like, okay, I need to protect you, or I need to do something for you, or like you need my help in some way. But when we start looking at Black children as adults, all of that goes out the window. Their rights to protection are gone out the window. Their rights to like some comfort within the criminal justice system, like that gets stripped away. Their right to like not be punished without encouraging growth or learning, it gets taken away and they get thrown into like the more, well, the whole criminal justice system is punitive, but they get thrown into the less forgiving punitive side of the criminal
Mhm.
justice system with that.
I think it's interesting that you brought that up just because the first thought was the school to prison pipeline. Just because in these schools they have police officers there to punish the kids for such minor crimes, and it's usually in schools that are predominantly black that they have the situation usually happen. So it's just like that extra step there to just make black children feel even closer to being in prison than they already are. Like you're already just being black, you're already going to be charged in a situation for doing something while black, and having this police officer in your school, they're ready to take you away in handcuffs for the smallest incidents, which could be violating the school dress code, even to even just just not eating your lunch. Like it's something so small that can get these Black children in trouble, and it's just so sad.
And I remember seeing when I was in high school, just for context, going to a predominantly white high school, seeing a lot of like these kids, like yucking it up with the school officer, and I'm like, I would not make eye contact with those men. Like I was not looking at them in the eye because I'm like, I don't know you, sir, and I don't want to know you. So it's just so weird, like the level of comfort some people have around individuals that are meant to represent safety to their communities, but actually represent trauma to many other communities, like the like Black communities throughout the United States. Yeah, no, I'm not chatting with you.
And I'm so glad y'all brought that up because so in the Convention of the Rights of the Child, which is a United Nations document, um, it says that children shouldn't be deprived of their liberty unlawfully or arbitrarily, and arrest, detention, or imprisonment should be used like in conformity with the law, but as a measure of last resort. And I think having like cops in especially poor public schools, it's no longer like using it as a measure of last resort, but it's like that's now like first step, like my prevention before even helping you or getting you any psychological counseling is to arrest you first, ask questions later.
Yeah, the market difference regarding how we see these figures function in predominantly white spaces versus schools of color, particularly like schools that have a majority Black student population. It's like y'all be moving very different, like very, very different based on your environment. And y'all will be really friendly with certain subsets of student populations and very aggressive with others. So it's like, it's interesting how you pick and choose when to be kind and when to be gentle with your methods.
I think that also leads to the fact that most of these police officers, when they get into like when they get into schools, the first thing they hear is bad information from teachers or faculty that teach these students. The first thing they'll say is, "Oh, this is a tough class." Like when I substitute as a substitute teacher, sometimes, I go into a class that's predominantly Black, and the first thing I heard from a teacher was, "Oh, this is a really tough class." I'm just like, and then I sit there for 10, 15 minutes and nobody is being tough or anything. I'm just like, where was this? Is it because they're Black and they have problems that you, quote unquote, problems that you've manifested? Like, come on. It's very much the police officers are like a, what's it called? A direct, what's the word for it? A direct plug, maybe, I don't know. Direct plug from the faculty and how they treat their children.
An extension. That's the word I
That's
think.
the word, extension.
But I'm so glad you brought that up too, because also in the CRC, they talk about how like states should like take measures to ensure that children are protected against all forms of discrimination. And one of the like on the basis of expressed opinions comes up. And I feel like so often like white teachers walk into a space with predominantly Black children and they are offended or afraid of expressed opinions or beliefs or like cultural like ways of interacting with each other, and then that's cause for like getting sent to the office or ISS or involvement with like that school, what do they call them, resource officers. But yeah,
Research.
like yeah, like that's a huge disruption to their education just because this white woman who's never spent more than 5 minutes with a Black person is all of a sudden afraid of you, and it's quote unquote a tough class. What makes it so tough, Karen?
Hmm. They can't answer the question because it's racism.
It's giving very much so self-fulfilling prophecy because it's like you don't expect certain populations, you don't expect certain groups to act certain ways or behave in certain ways. And so you're like, oh, gotta get ready, gotta prepare myself. It's like, no, you don't. You don't. It's like you are creating the energy and the behaviors that you think you're seeing, you're manifesting them. And it's just so frustrating to see that because it happens in subtle, more sinister ways that we've all, I'm sure, experienced. And it also happens in a lot more overt ways in which people's lives are lost. And so that's why it bothers me. People are like, oh, don't, always worry if don't think about race. I'm like, I'm going to think about it. I'm going to think about it. Thanks.
Yeah, and I like talking about education and not think about race is not possible. Like it's not possible because so many racial tactics are involved in the education system, even just down to something as simple as like white flight. Like all of a sudden you get an all black school district and all the white kids in that school district go to private school. And Philly's a great case of that. How many white kids actually live in the school district of Philadelphia, but they all go to O'Hara or Malvern or all the private schools. And with that, I think there's like some ignorance to the fact that like if you are a white teacher and this is genuinely a tough class, are you asking yourself why the class is tough? Are you asking yourself what these kids are going through at home, what they have to do? How many times have we gotten yelled at for sleeping in class? Well, I'm sorry I've been sleeping in class because I had school for 8 hours, then I had practice for 2, and then I worked from 5 to 11, and then I did homework from 11 to 1, and then had to get on the bus at 6:30. I am exhausted. And I slept and I came from a socioeconomic, like beneficial home. Can you imagine the exhaustion kids in North Philly are going through when they're getting someone I know who grew up in North Philly? He was like, yeah, I used to get held at gunpoint all the time on the way home from school. Be tired and sleeping in class too, and now you're arresting me for sleeping in class? That's crazy.
Literally, they are quite literally getting arrested for sleeping in class, which is so shocking because if that's the issue. These white women usually, or white teachers, I guess, who come into these schools that are predominantly Black and have no kind of cultural awareness to what these kids are going through. Not even cultural awareness, but like the area that they also live in is not always the safest, and they are literally fighting for their lives to even get to class sometimes. So if the first question you have is, why were you late? You can't be late. And not even give them the opportunity to actually express themselves and give you an answer, but just getting them in trouble, calling their parents, or like giving them attention. Now they don't have a way back home. It's just all this stuff adds up, and obviously the class you have is going to be tough if you're not giving them, if you're not understanding the situation that they're actually in.
Exactly. And a lot of what people don't talk about enough is people taking jobs, people from, better, higher socioeconomic status, backgrounds, taking jobs in areas of resource deficit because they know that they're getting their loans covered by some kind of like fund, like government funded, like loan forgiveness program. So they'll do it not because out of the kindness of their hearts, but because they're like, I don't have to pay my loans, and then they like live in Flower Town or like on the main line or something, and they have no idea what life is actually like. They just like drive in, park their car in the little faculty parking lot, teach, and then they leave. They're not connected to the community, and they're doing it because it benefits them economically, even more so.
Exactly. And that disconnection creates like unfair perceptions of what you think Black children should be. And when Black children aren't meeting that or aren't fulfilling that standard, or they are fulfilling that standard, then you rush to, oh, well, I need reinforcement or I need backup. And this like cycle is how you get instances where like evidence shows that Black boys are more likely to be put in situations where they're forced to act like adults. Like they're just forced to figure it out on their own more than white boys are. So Jamal does have to figure out how to, get himself home after you've now suspended him. As where Connor's mom is gonna come to the school and figure everything out, and he's gonna get to stay for the rest of the week. Like he's not being shoved out of school. His right to education is not being ripped away. And then like that is like something where I think the criminal justice system assumes that like while the disruption to education is fair and necessary to reprimand behavior. And that, quite frankly, makes no sense at all.
It doesn't at all. And while you were talking about that, the movie I thought about was Freedom Writers, and how every teacher from elementary school to high school every English teacher showed this movie.
Everyone.
Every single one of them showed this movie to us. Like, I went to a predominantly white school as well. So I just saw this movie as them feeling like some kind of angel for taking on this job. Like, oh, there's teachers like this out there who are, going into these worlds. Oh, it's a white savior move that they are projecting from themselves onto this movie, most likely. So I just want to bring that up. And also for the school to prison pipeline thing, Black children are forced to feel more adult-like. If you're putting them in handcuffs and without their parents present, nobody's there but themselves to protect them, what are they gonna do?
Which is illegal.
It's literally illegal, and they don't care because it's Black children, and they can get away with it, most likely.
I still remember. Now we're going like a little bit left field with this, but I'm still gonna say it because to this day it still floors me. The prosecutor for the Central Park Five, right, for that entire case, she still has not apologized to any of the young boys at the time that she sent to prison for decades.
She's proud of it. She thought she was
She's
right.
she
To this day, she believes
and
that she was doing the right thing.
Yep. And people gave her opportunities. They were like, "Hey, like, we're did it like covering this case. Do you want to say anything?" Nothing. Crickets. Like, how do you sleep at night?
And I don't think
Yes, she's a white woman. She can do whatever she wants. White women in New York, especially.
Maty, you're not wrong. And I don't think that was too far left field, Demi, because I think it like they experienced several rights violations. Like, okay, when we're talking about the quote unquote resource officers, we're not just talking about their arrest, right? We're also talking about the physical abuse that they inflict on children in schools. Like we've seen the videos on the news, on YouTube, on TikTok, where young Black kids are getting slammed on desks for talking back. So a 13-year-old talked back to you, which most 13-year-olds do, and you slammed him or her on a desk, and you're a 200-pound white man, and that made sense to you.
The thing is, it makes you question, like, what kind of training are you getting to be even a resource officer in these schools? Because if you're a resource officer, shouldn't your like priority be just to be there for the kids and just like protect them if anything happens outside the school, like, or like protect them from anything that might happen, not literally hurt them? I've seen so many videos of kids literally getting slammed against walls, like you were saying, or just like literally being slapped. I saw a police officer slap a little girl before for speaking back in school. I was just like, why are these people in these schools? Makes no type of sense.
Their rights to security against violence and bodily harm gone in the schools. We're not even talking about outside. They're not even doing anything right now. They're just at school.
I wish, and this is like bold of me, but I just really wish that someone would slap me. Like, I wish someone, because I say like this now, like this is always one of those things like, like big and bad when it comes to talk, but like, no, like, please do it. Please do it. Like, oh, the money. Sorry, that's once again, that's the privilege jumped out thinking about the money side of things, but it's just like, I'll take it from you. The fuck?
And you're not wrong, cause my mom will be there in a second. but that
I'm
is the privilege
saying
jumping out
my
in others.
my my mom and dad would my sister, she would
Woo! Like, I mean, like, imagine, right? Imagine a scenario where you're at school, a white teacher feels offended by you, you defend yourself. She then feels the need, especially 13-year-old Black boy who you might be her height, right? At this point, like boys grow faster and taller. So she feels offended or scared of you. She calls resource officer. He body slams you. You coming back the next day, happy go lucky to learn? I'm not. And if you don't have the privilege or the resources to change schools or do this, that, and the other, at that point, you're just not going to school. And then what happens?
And then they wonder what happened.
they blame you. They're like, they'll send a
Mhm.
truancy officer to your door, like, "Hi, we're
Ugh.
worried about Jamal." No, you're not. No, you're
If you were
not.
worried about Jamal, you wouldn't have body slammed him.
Mm-mm.
He
Yeah.
wouldn't have violated so many of his rights. So far we got the right of protection against violence, the right to freedom of opinion and expression, the right to education. You disrupted his right to education. Now you're disrupting his right to work later on in life. You are putting him at harm's way and potential to be arrested. How a Black boy is supposed to have joy? How?
They strip everything away. And then they wonder, why aren't they happy? Hey, girl.
They can find joy. I know that for me personally, the black squares on Instagram were very nice. I felt so much support from my allies.
Oh, not the black squares.
Oh
I
my God. I still remember, I'm not a good person. Um, some person like posted a black square that I like knew through someone, and they said, "I understand that I will never understand." Hashtag Blackout Tuesday. I said, wow. And then this man blocked me. I'm like, okay, so I thought you were pro-black. I thought you were why are you blocking me? What's up with the segregation tactics? What's up?
that was like a Grayson tactic.
But yeah, it's performative. It's giving performance art. It's giving Juilliard. It's giving Troy Bolton in High School Musical 3.
Yep, it's exactly why they go into predominantly black schools, predominantly black areas, and act like they are their savior just because they are there.
You gotta start calling it the Freedom Writers Complex because I don't seen that movie too many times.
Yep, same. I've seen it way too many times. Like I remember the plot, everything, every
Too
single
many
word.
times. And the Great Debaters, a done bun. I don't want to see that no more. But I'm glad you brought up the black squares, Demi. Oh, what a time to be alive, 2020. I mean, black squares, ShopRite was on fire. Like what was going on? And I think a lot of what was going on is like, social media and the news. They just figured out in the last 2 years that cops kill black people. They just got this
Yeah.
win. This is new. Now we're recognizing the criminalization of little boys. What's his name? What was his name? Tamir Rice. I think he was playing
Yeah.
outside. They
Mm-hmm.
killed him.
With a fake, like he was playing with like a little fake BB gun, or like not even.
I think it was
It
a
was like
water
a fake
gun.
Nerf, something
Yeah,
like that.
but we just figured out that black boys can't even play outside, or they're gonna get killed. So the world has not figured that out. But my question to y'all is: in everyone figuring that out and posting black squares, have we are we so set on like just keeping black people alive that we have forgotten that black people also have basic rights to joy? Because I think Black Lives Matter is very one dimensional at some point. Like, yeah, let's move past the fact that I should be alive. Are black boys deserving of rights to joy? Is that a conversation in Target's corporate office? Like, are we just saying that like cops shouldn't be killing black people? Okay, and then what? How do we move past that?
I oh, Maty, you can go first. Okay. I don't even really feel comfortable having those conversations with non-black people, talking about the process of like joy and relaxation and feeling comfortable, and how that isn't always something that is like easy to reconcile with the reality of like our larger kind of world as Black people within the United States, especially, but then also just in general, like on this earth. Um, and I think it is kind of limiting sometimes, because I think sometimes it allows people to feel like they understand what is really just one piece of a larger puzzle of like the Black experience. um and it's like I don't even know if the larger society is ready for that conversation, because I don't even know if larger society realizes that there are discrepancies in the human experience, that there are disparities and differences in more than just health and in more than just policing rates, and a lot of other things that really do weigh on you over time, like this weight that you become accustomed to, but it doesn't get any lighter. And I don't think that society is prepared, but I don't necessarily think that we need to wait for them. Um, I think we can have those conversations, and we should.
That's a great point. Like we should have these conversations and we can, because we have been we've been having this Black Lives Matter conversation since technically since like the beginning, like from whenever like slavery to Martin Luther King and Malcolm X to now. We've been having these conversations of just trying to stop police brutality. Like it's been at the forefront of all these movements. It's from the slavery, which was transferred to policing, and now we're here and we're still being policed as Black people. So to move past this, which is I think it's such a big hurdle, just because we've been fighting for this since our since people before us have been fighting for it. So it's hard to say exactly what can be done to get past it, just because every 25 years the media and social media acts like this is something new, like, oh, all of a sudden, oh, people are getting killed and it's Black people. Wow, I would have never guessed. Y'all were talking about the same thing 30 years ago or 25 years ago. It's nothing new. Nothing fresh. It's just that there's a new face for it now again. It's so beside that, the Black Lives Matter movement, I think it's very helpful in getting the message up again. Like it was the message was kind of buried for a couple of years and then it was reintroduced to a new group of people, Gen Z, I guess, which we were introduced to it when we were kids, but it was just we were acting like it was hundreds of years ago and you were learning it in school. I could have sworn Michael, what's his name? Damn, I could have sworn Michael Max was born in 1800s if if it was from the schooling, if what I've learned. But yeah, so just now thinking about it in present day, I think the next steps is thinking about joy and what else we can do, basic needs that we are missing, pretty much.
I think those are great responses and really get at the what's underneath. Like Black Lives Matter has started the conversation, but now we need to finish it, right? Like we need to wrap this up. We've been talking about this for a long time. Like we need to get past the point that Black people deserve to be alive. Like you said, like we need to get past the point of it's not just physical health disparities. And I think just now we're getting to the point of mental health disparities, but because the country as a whole doesn't really I don't know if we have a blanket understanding of mental health yet to get into the disparities yet. That's a different conversation. But
That's a great point, though. It's true. The blanket understanding,
yeah,
it's not there.
I think we need to start at square one with that one before we get to the Black squares, because they're not there yet. But Maty, you did bring up the school to prison pipeline a few times in this conversation, and I do want to acknowledge that a lot of the times that pipeline conversation is focused on Black boys, and I think now we are getting to a point where Black male mental health is becoming a larger conversation, but Black women are kind of left out of that conversation at some point, and especially at a young age, I don't think it's acknowledged. Um, efforts to kind of correct the school to prison pipeline usually leave out Black girls who are actually 6 times more likely to receive OSS or out of school suspension than white girls. And some of these suspensions start in kindergarten, 5 years old. Oh, yes, Demi, I see your face.
I wish someone would suspend a little 5-year-old black girl and I knew about it. For I would have to sit down and because I'm just like, right, in what world do we suspend 5-year-olds? What is learned from that? What is gained from that? Do you feel powerful? Do you feel strong? Really just marginalizing this baby, basically. You sound sociopathic, like it's unreal to me. And that's what's scary, like the fact that these behaviors are normalized, but they actually are indications of like a lot of instability in terms of the experiences of young black girls. It's like that's immediately introduced to them, and comfortably so by people that should be um, protecting them and elevating them. So
And it gives this like just because you mentioned that, I want to get into it real quick. It gives this like message that Black girls are, oh, actually, the 5-year-old thing. Why are you suspending somebody who can't even say suspension, like can't spell the word, doesn't know what it means? You are suspending a child, a baby who doesn't even know what you're talking about. That you couldn't find any other way to deal with the situation. That was your only option at kindergarten. Anyway, that's beside the point. My point is that my point is, what was I gonna say? Damn. Hop in real.
that's okay. I just want
Yeah.
to. Oh, Maty, you got it, or do you? Okay, I got it. Okay, I'll just
Okay.
quickly do a personal anecdote. My senior year of high school, I was extremely stressed out, and like really overwhelmed and was going through like a lot of panic attacks. It's senior year, right? Like a lot's happening. And I missed like maybe like 2 or 3 days of school because I was like just so overwhelmed. Still had, good grades, still had like good track record, all of that stuff. They came banging on my door, boom, boom, boom. It was like this school like social worker was there, all this stuff, and she's like, "All right, let's go, come on," as like basically like as if she was waking up like the whole block, and I was just kind of like, well, I was like, what? And it was just so weird to me. Like it was almost like the criminalization of my own like mental health. I'm like, can I just like be anxious and like, and it doesn't have to, and you can come to me but not with that energy. Like it's so weird to me. And I know that if the circumstances were different, if we were, let's say like like richer, because there were like some bougie people that went to my school, or if we, were like my parents like overly involved PTA parents like that like knew like the vice principals by name, because there were definitely those parents, it would be much different. But like we kept our heads down and minded our business, and then y'all want to come pounding on our door at 7 a.m. Like you're not well. Like that's so weird to me. But yeah, just different standards for different populations and different precedents are set.
All right, so I remember what I was gonna say earlier, but all right, so what I wanted to say was that they built this image that Black girls are resilient to everything. So the strong Black woman stereotype is instilled so young. A child could be what, 8 years old, and they're all of a sudden they're like, oh my gosh, she's so strong. I'm like, this girl is like a child. You can give them the space to grow into who they have to be. One. And two, Demi, my sister had the same story, exact same story. They do not, like, if you are an involved person, they will make sure that they will call you before they even come to your house. But if you are somebody like a Black child, a Black girl, the first thing they'll do is knock at your door at 7 a.m., which is really just insane to me.
Ooh, y'all gave us so much to unpack. Did want to plug, we are going to talk about the strong Black woman complex and stereotype in episode 4. So check back for that. But also, when you guys brought up images and like kind of like the standard, like holding a different standard for different populations, like so the 5 years old thing that comes from statistics that show that like Black girls are more likely to be viewed as behaving and seeming older than their stated age, more knowledgeable about adult topics like sex at 5, and more likely to have adult roles and responsibilities than what would have been expected for their age. And I think all of this is framed of like what the black girl is, and not framed from like what she's inherited like culturally and like from adults around her. Like at 5 years old, you don't know nothing about sex. Where'd you get that from? And if you're taking on responsibilities and roles that are not of your age, who told you to do that? Why did you feel this is like why did you feel the need to do this? Who did that to you? And I think that like when we're suspending, not we, when they are suspending 5-year-old girls, they aren't like acknowledging that, you know?
I, first of all, Maty, y- it's, I'm not surprised it happened to your sister at all, but it's ridiculous regardless and disgusting, and I don't know why they treat teenagers like this. Um, but yeah, I just wanted to say, like, I remember my sister, we both like went through puberty like younger, so like elementary school, and um I remember like our pediatrician at the time talking to my sister who was probably like 10 or 9 and going like, "Oh, looks like you're a woman now. Get ready for womanhood." And my mom was there and she was like, "No." My mom was like, "Absolutely not." And it's just so weird. I'm like, why are you saying that?" It was a white man too. So I'm like, "Okay." Like, and I don't think it helped that we were both like the same height that we are now in our 20s when we were like 10. So like people really thought we were like grown. It's like, no, like we're children, sir.
It's like the hypersexualization of young girls, young black girls. It's just like it starts at such a young age, and it's portrayed even more in like media, and like since the daybreak of since black children were allowed to be on media, like on TV, that's when it started. It's just from the jump. You get 13-year-olds playing 17-year-olds in shows, and they're getting hypersexualized in these roles that they're playing. And then this translate into the children who are then getting assigned these you're grown now talks from even sometimes from black family members who tell them this, oh, you're acting fast, you're too grown, all these words that just make these children not feel like children anymore and pushes them into basically early adulthood, I feel like.
It really does. And it violates their right to health, like that biggest right to health and protection from namely sexual violence, because one, the adultification and sexualization of black girls puts them in danger in ways that we won't get into today. But for two, it's also to be noted that like when they get suspended for whatever they're wearing, we're not even gonna get into that dress code thing. For whatever they're wearing, they're often, put in this cycle of like juvenile imprisonment. And in juvenile imprisonment settings, rates of sexual victimization are extremely high and exacerbate the mental health challenges that Black girls may already be feeling. And Black youth are 30% more likely to report sexual victimization by facility staff, and female Black youth report more than twice the rate of forced sexual activity within other youth in the facility. And all of that stems from, oh, well, she's 5 and acts older than what we think she should be.
Yes. And in the adultification of all that, which goes back to everything that you both were just saying, um the onus is always put on a child, the blame is put on a child. So it's like they internalize that and they assume that, oh, it's my fault, I must have seduced, like just like the twisted logic that people force onto brains that are still forming, that are still developing. um and it completely skews the understanding of like, no, you didn't deserve anything to happen to you, anything that you did not want happening to your body, to you, to your life. You don't deserve any of that. So it's just, Yeah, it's weird. It always places the blame on the victim.
And that makes me think about like words that are said to Black women, the Black girls when they're growing up. Like, for example, oh, you're somebody, some guy is coming over to this house, change your outfit. Like, why am I having to change my outfit? Because this grown man can't, like, can't stop himself from looking at a little girl. Or even like myself, growing up in like my high school, my middle school, we had like a sports day and they literally told us wear shorts or wear something that's not gonna like really be make you hot. So I wore shorts. They were fingertip length, like I told us. And I got dress coded, but the five other white girls that were wearing the same exact shorts did not. So I was forced to wear my gym shorts while everybody else was wearing whatever they wanted. It just it makes black girls feel insecure and about their bodies, as well as just makes them feel hypersexualized in most situations.
And a qualitative study showed all of that, Maty, that white girls of the same age, when compared to white girls of the same age, people think Black girls need less nurturing, less protection, less support, less comfort, are more independent, and are more adult. So while you and all of the other Black girls in public schools, even private schools, but more likely public schools, are being retaliated against because of your bodies through dress code, Sarah and Abby get to wear whatever they want because they small. That whose fault is that?
That reminds me of our conversation that we had in the last podcast, where it's like you can just be minding your business and people will think that like you're intimidating or like you're mean or whatever. And it's like, like I just wish I could be
I'm just
like,
alive.
like that's exactly like if I was like, white, I'd be like a manic pixie dream girl because I'm just sitting in the corner listening to my music, eating my Wawa pretzel. But for me, like, I look like I'm planning a murder. Okay.
Yeah, like why are little girls in like why are teachers telling little elementary school girls, oh, you should just smile more, you're just a little intimidating. Why are you intimidated by a 6-year-old child? What is your issue?
Remember when, oh my God, what's her name?
Oh,
And
yeah, Kylie,
yeah.
whatever her name is, she talked about Beyonce's child and how she said,
Yes.
it was Camila Cabello. She said
Yes.
that, Ken, what's her name? Beyonce's child made her feel insecure and she cried because she laughed
No,
or something like that. She wasn't looking at her
she like
performance.
literally Beyonce was about to start clapping during her performance, and then Blue Ivy, her daughter, was like no, and like Camilla was like that just made me feel so insecure. It's
Bro,
like
if you
she's
feel insecure,
five.
that's your problem.
For
She's
real.
5.
She was
She's
literally 5.
5.
She was literally 5 at that point. Or whatever age. Like, come on.
I'm glad y'all brought up Blue Ivy too, because I got something for y'all. So Blue Ivy, when she was younger, was a hot debate about her hair from many different people, Black, white, whatever you want to call it. A lot of people were all up in her face or all up in their faces about how they do her hair. And I think, what Black people would prefer to see, and white people just being confused, like, what are you doing? And like Black girl hair is another source of suspension. You get suspended for having braids, which is a violation of, it's a violation of so many rights. It's a violation of their right to participate in cultural and artistic activities. It's a violation of their right to physical, mental, spiritual, and social development. Their right to rest, leisure, and play at an appropriate age, to freely culturally express themselves at an appropriate age.
I'm so glad you mentioned play, because what 5-year-old is gonna be minding their silk press? Let them have braids.
That's what I'm saying. They need the braids to play. The braids are a part of I need my braids because my hair is gonna sweat. My hair sweats. It looks, but then they're not thinking about all that because Abby washes her hair every night before bed.
Yep. And that makes me think of the fact that that whole situation as a kid, like not being able to wear your own like hairstyle comfortably transfers into adulthood and having to go to interviews. And before going to your interview, you'll have to take out your braids. You have to put on a wig, a short little bob wig, and go to your interview and act like you don't wear those braids, you're not part of it, just so you can get your job. And then if you put it on, all of a sudden it's, oh, it was in the dress code that you're actually not allowed to do that. So you have to continue wearing that little small short bob wig, bunted. Why do you speak Olaf? Oh, I'm so sorry. But these other white girls can come into your job and they can rock the dreads or locks, and it's not an
Oh,
issue.
don't get me started.
Hmm.
Everyone was
That's
telling
a
me how brave I was for locking my hair. I was like, you ain't see Sean, the one that be riding the skateboard all the time. He locked his hair. Why am I brave? I just got tired of combing my hair every day.
Literally, I'm like, oh, I'm like at this point, even when I go to my interviews and I'm a hijabi, I have to wear it in a turban style. It's because I don't want them to perceive me in any way the first meeting. I want to make my own. Like, I know for a fact if they see a hijabi girl walk in there, they're gonna think, oh, hijabi, they're gonna think Muslim. So I'm gonna control how I'm seen from the start, which is really sad that I have to even do that because this is the life we're living in, racism and Islamophobia.
yep. Honestly, that like having to continuously like bend and modify yourself to fit a standard that the people who set the standard themselves don't have to meet is ridiculous. And then on top of that, the whole locks conversation is one thing, but then it bothers me so much when people are like, yeah, but like at least like grow my hair or like stuff like that. And I'm like, people like literally people of all racial and ethnic backgrounds wear wigs and use extensions. And so that's so funny to me. I'm like, no, Rebecca literally has a lace front on right now. Like I don't know what you're talking about. And that's what kills me. So it's just like, but like for us, it's like this different standard. Or it's like if someone wants to, yeah, it's like I don't know, it's weird. It's so weird. And then the same thing can be said with religion. I think that, it's so much more palatable for someone who's of a fair complexion to say like, oh yeah, like I follow this religion or this faith or whatever it may be. And then it's so much more palatable, especially if it deviates from Christianity. The minute you deviate from Christianity, whether or not people are religious, they're like, ooh, they get scared. And it's like, you just told me that you haven't been to church since you were 13. Like, what's going on?
And I think that fear, like it, like literally, this whole conversation has just been about white fear, and arguably, even though we didn't touch on it today, white women fear because a white woman being scared will get you killed. This is going past the rest.
Yep,
Ask
yep.
ask the black men.
Mm-hmm.
Ask OJ.
Little boys.
Actually, OJ got away with it. That's a
Yeah.
different conversation.
Yeah, we won't talk about
Ask
that
Emmett
stuff.
Till.
Yes,
There we
exactly.
go.
Ask
Yeah.
everyone.
There we go. That was a better example.
Mm-hmm.
But with that, my last question for y'all is, what is an appropriate abolitionist and public health response to this plethora of rights violations? How are black children supposed to have joy when they can't even go to school in peace? No kid wants to be in school, and then you got to deal with this on top of it. How do we respond to this as public health professionals? And this isn't typically a topic that comes up in public health when it should be.
It's not. They will bring up health disparities to the death, but they will not actually bring up the fact that like this happens. Well,
I'm putting that word on my list of words I don't want to hear no more.
health disparities, same.
I don't want anybody from that university we attend to say disparity to me again.
I was gonna say, please stop. And
Mm.
also, one thing that I appreciated, all disciplines have their failures and their deficits, setbacks. The one thing I appreciated more in undergrad, at least in my sociology and psychology classes, we actually talked about our implicit biases a lot more and how that influences our work. And I think it's because those disciplines, particularly psychology, And the clinical capacity is seen at the more individual micro level. So you're a lot more cognizant of how your actions, your thoughts, behaviors can influence someone that you're interacting with, particularly if you're providing clinical treatment to them. But I don't think people realize, and by you I mean like, y'all that aren't here with me right now, how it's even worse at the population health level, because it's like now we're getting into the inequities that we're talking about. Now it's when you can talk about nah, I don't even want to talk about health disparities then. Actually, never mind, because I'm actually over it too. But yeah, no, like so I think the first step is like, can we just start talking about the fact that we're all super biased, and we need to talk about the role that the institution that we attend plays in all of that, and then we can talk about how we can not ignore these biases, but work with these biases to then actually talk about the humanity, excuse me, behind Black people, because I think that when you boil it down to it, it's that people do not see Black people as human, not the same way that they see white people or people, of any lighter complexion. So can we talk about that? Like, I just
I
want to talk
like
about that,
that.
and not have it be scary. Like, I don't want people to be afraid and run away from it.
I like that. And that made for the public health perspective, I think we did have a class on health disparities, racial disparities in public health or United States our first year, this last past quarter. And we did take that test on implicit bias, and we had a discussion board on it. And my group was with two other white people, and their responses were, "Oh, I was so shocked that it said
I remember this.
I didn't have any implicit biases." I was like, okay, whatever. Like, how did you answer the questions? You obviously answered the questions in a way that would make you look like you have no implicit biases. It's hard to really not have any implicit biases at all. Like at all. Even I had some. Like in my answers, it said I prefer Black people or white people. I think that's a coping mechanism to me. So I embrace that. But that's beside the point. Um, the point is the fact that I think to move forward and to address these issues in public health, the first thing is to understand that we've done enough research. The research is there. It's here. It's enough. We've done it. Now the next step,
Y'all can't hear it, but I'm clapping for Maty right now.
Me
like we've
too.
done enough research. The next step now is to actually implement it and change what we see. And we know if we do this, it's gonna have this impact. Or if we change this, it's gonna work. So why don't we do it? As public health majors and public health officials in the future, I know we will work towards it, but I hope all of us, the entire public health community, works towards having the same goal at the end, because I feel like a lot of us have the goal of just understanding racial disparities, but not actually solving it.
And I'm so glad you said that, because I don't want any of our listeners from any discipline to think that we don't value conversations around disparities. Health disparities are very real. And like Maty said, we got tons of research to know that they're real. All we want to say is that the university that we attend likes to do a lot of research around the topic health disparities, which we already know about. And we just saying they need to go a little deeper than that. And it doesn't just have to be for public health, right? It's for a lot of disciplines. Don't get wrapped up in that research world. Research is a buzzword right now. Everyone's doing research. I don't want to hear no more research about the environment. We know the air is bad.
It's enough.
It's enough. I'm tired. Please.
Please
Give me a
start
break.
teach people how to actually implement this research. We learn about the research and then
Action steps.
Next step, what are we gonna do with the research that we're conducting every 10 years on the same topic?
Exactly.
And don't just say you're gonna do it. Don't write a paper and provide action steps at the bottom and not follow through on those action steps. Do them. Do at least one. You don't gotta do all 3, 4, 5, or 6. Just do one. Follow through.
Yes, they love the next steps section in research.
Do
Next
your
steps.
next steps.
No, let's not make this a section. Let's make it a movement.
Right.
A list of recommendations, but nothing happens.
And I want to see that university and all other universities, don't just pay your professors to do research. Pay them to do something. That it should be a part of tenure. Don't just do research. Do something. Produce.
I like that. Produce.
Yeah. Because sometimes it does give performative because you like look at someone's research list, you're like, oh, this is great, da 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 da. And then you actually interact with them, you're like, that's a little bit suspicious.
I don't want to see your 50-page CV.
I was just
Yeah.
about to say, you know, we had a couple CV sent to us last quarter for the yeah, but I'm not gonna say names in case they come here, but you know, I'm just saying we had a couple of CVs, and my question was, they look very well published, but are they actually doing anything with these publications?
No, because doing research makes money, and money makes the world go round. So
that's what I guess.
That's another capitalistic conversation for another day. Maty, can you give us a preview of what we have to look forward to in the next episode?
So next episode, we will be diving into We Are Not Your Token and diversity quotas and essential workers' struggles. So it will be a very fun podcast, very lighthearted, like we always keep it. Not dark at all, right? But yeah.
I think we're always fun, honestly. Exactly. I know I'm gonna re-listen to these later and I'm gonna be cracking up.
Same.
I feel like it's a great time.
Yes. Yeah. It's gonna be a great podcast. Episode 3 is gonna be on that diversity quotas. We're not your token.
Nope.
Thank y'all for sticking with us today.